Hey virtual aviators, Goats here with the NA33rd, and welcome to part 2 of our formation flying series. Today we're going to talk about two items related to formation flying. Number 1, executing an effective join-up procedure. Number 2, sustained turn management. In addition to talking about these two subjects, we'll demonstrate these items in a short practical application to see our technique airborne and in action. Okay, jumping right into effective join-up procedures. When you talk about join-up procedures, just like anything that starts off in multiplayer, when you're in an organized environment, the first thing that you have to have is a plan. That plan is something that we talked about in the first video, which is called the mutual support contract. That mutual support contract is going to lay the foundation of how each member of the flight should conduct themselves during the remainder of the mission, all the way from the start to the end. Doing this will allow for clear and concise coordination between each flight crew member in different areas of the flight regime. So when we talk about join-up procedures, there's two specific situations that come to mind. One is the initial join-up after takeoff, and then any rejoins that happen throughout the flight should you become separated, no matter whether it was an intentional separation or if it wasn't. When it really comes down to is you want to have procedures that are easy to remember, considerate of each flight member when it comes down to the execution. When you talk about consideration of each member for the execution, the biggest thing I can tell you is the power management is going to make or break on how hard or how easy it is for you to join up with your flight members. When it comes down to developing the procedure for your rejoin, there are 4 main ingredients that you need to consider when developing your plan. 1, the formation to be flown. 2, the altitude in which the rejoin will be completed. 3, the contract speed for the flight and for the rejoin. And 4, any special parameters or spins, right, that need to be taken into consideration that will help you make the decision on whether to either continue with trying to affect your rejoin or to move on to the next step. A simple contract when it comes down to your rejoin procedures could be something like this. The formation to be flown would be route. The altitude in which the formation should rejoin is 10,000 feet. The speeds that will fly in contract will be 350 knots in cruise and 250 knots when affecting rejoin. Any special parameters could be something as simple as like, if not saddled en route by waypoint 1, rejoin at 10,000, left-hand turns 250 knots. Alright, now that we've talked about the factors of coming up with an effective rejoin procedure, let's talk about some of the techniques that I use when it comes down to sustained turn management. If you're asking, what do you mean by sustained turn management? Or why is sustained turn management important? What I mean by sustained turn management is that in most cases, when you're flying as a wingman, staying in formation can actually be a very taxing task to accomplish, especially when you're flying close to your flight lead. There's a term called heads down time. I don't know if people talk about it or not, all right, but I've come to find out and appreciate that being able to have a good balance of aircraft management and allowing heads down time makes a huge factor in how well your flight is going to go. Heads down time is basically the amount of time that you're looking at stuff in the cockpit, either your MFDs or your instruments or the HUD, versus when you're looking actually outside of the aircraft and what's going on around you in the environment. So flight leads, from your perspective, when you are choosing a formation, right, make sure the formation is appropriate to the level of complexity of the environment that you're going to be in. If you're just traveling from point A to point B, expecting no combat, no threats, cool. fly close together, don't need that much heads down time. The wingman can focus on flying the formation in reference to you. When you're in a combat situation, you want to open up that formation to a formation that's more appropriate, that will allow the wingman to effectively scan instruments, scan sensors, right, put weapons on target without having to worry about running into you. Okay, so moving on. One of the big things that a lot of people skip when it comes down to flying in DCS is learning how to make level turns. Wow. Really? Making level turns? Yes, 100% important. You probably never noticed it before, but when you're making turns in DCS and you're going left or you're going right, no matter which direction, how much altitude are you losing or gaining when you are completing that turn? Your goal should be to be able to make a turn over at least 30 degrees, right? Let's just say 30 degrees at first without losing a significant amount of altitude, right? I would say a good starting point is make a level left-hand turn or level right-hand turn for 30 degrees of heading change without dropping over 100 feet in altitude. It takes a little bit of concentration to do that. The best instrument that you're going to use to be able to determine whether you're doing it right or not is the HUD. The biggest line in the HUD that's almost always there, unless you're just in some kind of crazy attitude, is the horizon line. Your velocity vector in relation to the horizon line is your best indicator of whether you are making appropriate, controlled left or right hand turns. It makes a huge difference when you're flying in formation. Okay, some other things to consider. I coined this myself to remind myself to make sure that I'm staying in front of the jet by riding the rails of safety. Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but just hear me out. When you're talking about riding the rails, okay, think about a roller coaster. Okay, when you think about the construction of a roller coaster, you have the cars that everybody sits in, okay, and then you have the rails that guides the path of the coaster itself. Those rails, right, keep you from hitting other parts of the roller coaster or, running rampant, falling off the track. There are safety mechanisms that are actually above and below those rails that actually lock you in to that system. Okay, when you're flying your jet, right, you are in control of where those rails go. Okay, so if you're thinking about what your path is going to look like in the next 10 seconds, in the next 20 seconds, in the next 30 seconds, okay, then that's going to keep you ahead of the jet. If you're constantly being reactive to everything that you're seeing in the jet, you're going to have a hard time flying formation, let alone doing anything else in DCS, because you're getting saturated in the moment instead of anticipating what's coming up next. Next thing that you need to think about and consider, geometry is a factor. You're like, man, I got to start thinking about geometry to fly in formation. No, not 100%. However, it does become a factor. Where the geometry comes into play is when you're making large degrees of heading changes and there's no power compensation by one aircraft or the other. What ends up happening is you turn in place with no power change, and over time the nose of the outside aircraft will end up pointing at the aircraft that's on the inside of the turn. So this makes power management key to maintaining good formation. Okay, 2 more topics and we're going to wrap this up. So first up, the set it and forget it mentality of flying your aircraft in DCS is going to make everything so much harder when you're trying to accomplish formation flying tasks. There is no perfect power setting. There is no perfect stick position that's going to keep you in formation unless you're flying in a straight line for the whole time. And to be honest, you know that you're not going to be able to fly the whole mission in just a straight line. So you got to be dynamic with your inputs when it comes down to making corrections and putting yourself in the right place at the right time when you're trying to fly formation. Last but not least, And this is more from the flight lead perspective, should you find yourself in that position. When you are doing your initial join up procedures, or even the rejoin for that matter, flying in a straight line at 400 knots is not going to help your wingman join or rejoin the formation. When you do that, essentially the only thing that you're doing is running away from your wingman. So that's going to make your wingman have to burn up more fuel or possibly get in the afterburner just to make up the distance that you have separated from them already, plus the amount of time that's going to take them just to get back to a position where the rejoin is even going to be effective. Okay, I'm going to use that bad word again, but we're going to use it for a positive note. Geometry. Use the geometry to affect a proficient and efficient flight rejoin. The geometry of a circle will assist you so that the wingman can actually pull lead to close up the distance a lot faster than if you as the lead were flying in a straight line. Once the rejoin is complete, then you can choose a heading that will put you back on course to finish the rest of your mission. Alright, if you've made it this far, you are well on your way to improving your DCS experience. It should go without saying, but this is just a reminder that these are tips, tricks, and techniques for performing flight formation tasks. By no means is this the definitive answer for going about completing these things. It's just a way for you to get started or improve your flight formation in DCS. Join us next time for the third and final installment of our formation flying series. Don't miss out on a practical application of all the formation flying tips that we've learned so far in a short mission for the DCS F-16 Viper. As always, I hope this is beneficial, I hope you learned something, and I hope you join us in the next one. Remember, canopies down, wheels up. This is Goats, and I'm out.